You're listening to the So Tell Us podcast.
With David Feinberg and Jared McCallie. How was that, David?
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the So Tell Us podcast. This episode was an absolute treat. We had Mr. Sam Ike, Boston comedy legend.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, yeah, he's probably up there with the old legends.
He's like someone that I feel like is synonymous with that scene right now, and is someone that I really feel like when people hear about him and when they watch his shit, he really blows people out of the water. What's funny? I was messaging with him today, and I said something. I was like, "Hey, man, thank you so much, for being on the podcast. All this, you really are you're like a comedic inspiration to me." And he was like, "Thank you so much for enjoying my stuff, man, because I know so many people who wouldn't,
Everything with him that was like a message back and forth was like, I can't wait to disappoint you two.
He's
self-deprecating, but he is the confidence in his stand-up and the way that he delivers jokes is really amazing. I think you'll see that in his answers in this too. Like I was really I was listening the whole time. It's very easy to zone out. I don't know if you guys do podcasts. Everybody listening to this probably also has a podcast. But it's easy to zone out. But with Sam, it was really cool. It was really easy to talk to him. I think we go over really cool stuff in this. We don't all the whole time talk about stand-up. We talk a lot about movies. We talk about one of the coolest things I thought was that he's going to see every baseball stadium before his demise, I guess. It's kind of a cool thing. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. He's like a passionate person about talk about movies and sports. You can really see he is like a very varied person that actually has a life outside. He's not like in the shit of comedy all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that it really plays into his comedy because it seems like he's in conversation and on stage, he's like a people person,
Yeah, which is awesome. And that's what we want. And when we do this, it was cool because we got to do the interview portion and then we got to talk about just him as a regular person. And that's kind of what we're hoping for too. And it's starting to come out in this. So if you're listening, you're saying, wow, these two are growing before my ears. And if you're one of
the journey that these two guys make is why I tuned in to the Serial podcast.
And they're like, I can't wait until one of these guys gets addicted to cocaine and this whole thing goes to shit.
They try to do something way too big with the podcast, like T-shirts or something.
Yeah, and we've got all our people, who are in support of us, and then I'm excited. This is going to be a great episode. Please enjoy Sam Ike. Perfect.
But I didn't see it.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I was thinking of the movie with Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro.
What, Limitless?
Limitless, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because they shut
down
Philadelphia for that movie.
Yeah, and also Silver Linings Playbook takes place in Philly.
Yeah.
I know a lot about Philly. We can talk about this. I love doing Philly podcasts.
We're just trying to hang. Like I don't know.
An hour later, just that sandwich is pretty good, but I think the better sandwich, and then at the end, so you're a comedian. All right, good. All right, well, thanks everybody for stopping by and all that.
Everything now in reality to me has become punk rock music. Like if you listen to punk music and you were a kid and then you were like, hey, have you ever heard the Ramones? And someone's like, yeah, they're cool, but have you heard the Clash? And you're like, yeah, but have you heard the Sex Pistols? This is every single thing now in reality of real life. It's just this, that's.
Oh, just the listing of what we used to do.
Yeah. Have you seen Limitless? Have you seen Silver Linings Playbook? Wait, have you seen, it's...
Yeah.
Blame YouTube videos. Have you seen that?
Yeah, so we have. I just want to keep everybody on the same page that we're in it. Welcome, Sam. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for
Thanks for having me.
joining us and everything.
Ike, we are, as David said, excited.
Legitimately. It's funny that we're talking about Philly because I think that it was very interesting. The way that I originally heard about you was through other comedians just sort of being a very like hush hush, like, oh my God, like I can't believe what Sam Ike did on this show or that show. Like sometimes people approach it saying like comedian. Do you think of yourself that way?
I think that's a very nice way to say in that audience. I'm not an audience member comedian.
I don't want you to don't take it the wrong way.
No, yeah. I mean, it's always flattering when somebody else who does what you do likes you, right? That's just like natural. But I mean, I don't know. I never really think about it. I mean, I do understand that like I have a tendency probably to do some things that not other comics are gonna do. But I also what you never hear is about all the times that it's gone horribly wrong. Or maybe that's all you're
right. Could you like, for people that are listening or like that would just be getting into your stuff, could you describe a little bit of like your on-stage persona?
Sure. Yeah. I guess like the first part is like there's definitely like a I like playing with ego. So on stage I try to play a persona that thinks they're better than everybody, like not just the comedians or the audience. But that's also like that also just was kind of more of a defense mechanism because I was so nervous that I was like, well, if I just go overconfident, and then I just kind of leaned into that. And then like I try to like play around and improvise with the audience, I definitely have like jokes that I have set up and, call back, all that stuff. But that's all like, to me, the fun part is to get in between that. So like, like just, like this crowd work, but then it's also just like the last set I ever did before the lockdown was like in Milwaukee, and like halfway through the set, I just figured, the bar was right next to the audience, so I just had audience members come up and do a shot around the bar, and then I just kind of interviewed them and stuff like that. So like that kind of shit like makes me happy. Those are my giggles. I like doing my set inside the crowd sometimes and just having an empty stage. It started because I just wanted to see if anybody else would walk on the stage, but no one's ever done it.
I really like that.
I don't know if that. What was that?
Oh no, I was saying I like that's like you. The first thing I ever saw of yours, you just started with, "I'm talented." That to me is so genius, to just already set yourself apart from the people in the audience is amazing. Of just because everybody ends. You ever see someone in an open mic and they go, "I've been David Feinberg." Thanks. Like there's 7 people here. They can ask your name when you get off stage. I like that the ego. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's so ridiculous that I start every set with "Give it up for me, I'm fucking talented," and I end every set with "You're welcome."
Yeah.
I'm Sam Ike and you're welcome. And like that's very. It's just so stupid. That's such an arrogant thing to do when there's 8 people in the audience, and and it's my favorite thing in the world. What you should really see is when I bomb, and then I'm like, "Fuck you, I was great." Walk off to dead silence. You got to see those. Those are the fun ones.
I love that though. That's awesome. Just being confident, and it's like that night it's not going great, but there's a million nights where it went great, and then that confidence is still there, not breaking your act at all.
I mean, it's just like try and have as much fun as you can with it, because like you dictate how much stand up you can do. I mean, you're the one that can. It's your choice if you quit. And so So to me, it's just like you might as well enjoy it because it seems weird to the thing I've never understood is anyone who tried to make their act for something that wasn't genuine, you know? Because I think that's the only thing an audience can really sniff out. You know, they can sniff out nerves and all that shit, sure, but they can figure out if you're not honest with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Was that
100%.
was that something that was like a learned experience for you? I mean, you talk a lot about immediately when we asked the question, you knew immediately you were like, it comes from a place of like extreme, you know, you're playing this like egomaniac in a lot of ways. Was that something that you like, but you also, it's interesting that you say that it developed out of like a nervousness that it feels like you feel like genuinely came across, but like looking back at really early stuff, was that something that was always there, something that had to be developed?
Yeah, I mean, I started in improv and sketch, so that was like kind of already there. And I just always had this fear of like, I know that my straight, no one's ever been like, oh yeah, Sam Ike's a good joke writer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not terrible at it, but I also knew if I just stood in one spot, just telling jokes, it was never gonna work.
Right. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So it was pure insecurity, like mostly everybody else. I just had a different way of showing it.
I get that. I don't know. It's just interesting to hear like that. There's a I don't know. Could you talk about that influence though of like sketch and improv, jumping from those in the order that you did sketch, improv, and then into stand up? How that sort of morphed or formed the thing?
Sure. Yeah. I was in a sketch group with a few of my friends, and we still talk. Like, and part of like what we did with his sketches, because we hated like writing scripts, so we would kind of come up with like, you know, 3 to 5 beats of things we wanted, and then we all met in improv class, and then we all just kind of like improvised it to get to that point. And then that kind of just stayed with me throughout improv. Like, you know, this is bad improv, but you know, you found things that I was like, oh, I know I could do that thing, and then I just would do it in a scene. And then in stand up, I kind of approached it the same way, where I was like, okay, I'll ask a question to myself, write down a note, and then I'll figure it out on stage, and then I just kind of like will run with it. Or, you know, it started into a thing of like, I'd have a premise, and then I would just ask the audience about it, and then we would just kind of work it out together. I've done that before in shows. And then that turned into another bit that I do, where it's like, if the bartender is like visible, I'll go back and forth with the bartender about my act. And that's very hit or miss. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I actually want to go back to that thing, the question David asked before. But obviously, so you're in Boston now, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And were you born in Massachusetts or like New England area like that?
Yeah, I was born in Mass. I've been pretty much living in Boston. I grew up like an hour from Boston. I've basically lived in Massachusetts or Boston my whole life. I spent like year and a half in college, and I dropped out. So
I asked that because like we're going back to you know, like I love that you're like, I'm talented. You're boisterous. I don't know what the word is on stage where you're just, you know, unabashed yourself, but you're from Boston. There's no person who's like, hi, I'm from Boston. You know, like they're in your face, you know? Like, do you think that Massachusetts thing is part of your comedy at all? Would you say that or no?
Oh yeah, it's gotta be, right? It's gotta be. But I would also say the counter is like, you got a lot of guys from Boston who are like way more like joke ready, intellectual, thoughtful kind of guys that you're like, oh, this is clever. I think when you look at, I always tell people the reason why every comic starting out should always like try to do a trip in Boston at least a few times when they're starting out, is because Boston is one of the best audiences in the country, just for the sake of Boston's a unique place where you have literally the smartest and dumbest people in the world in the same room at every show, and they're all different. They're all different, like, backgrounds, male, female. It's obviously it's mostly white because it's New England, but like when you go to shows in the city, it's pretty diverse. But it's literally like the Tom Brady, Dunkin' Donuts, like fucking idiots. Like there's Indian guys who are those guys. You know what I mean? But then you also have Harvard and MIT, and you know what I mean? And like you'll have like you'll just have this weird mixture of all kinds of different types of people, but literally the smartest and dumbest people in the same room in every show in Boston.
I couldn't imagine that's like, I think it's probably the same thing for Boston, but it's like, I've heard also people say fucking boo. They say boo, but they go fuck 'em boo. I don't know if that's true, but like but
I never heard anybody say that. I gotta be honest with you,
but I feel it's got to be the same thing as Philly is. Like, I remember one of the first times I did comedy in Philly, I told someone, I was like, yeah, I didn't do good. And they were like, yeah, you're in Philadelphia where like they boo a kicker if he doesn't do well. And it's like, I could be better than that fucking guy up there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's the same thing where it's you versus the elements. East Coast comedy is very different than anywhere else, pretty much.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was just on the West Coast for the beginning of this year, and yeah, it's definitely different. But at the end of the day, like a good comic's a good comic, you know. I think like it's always fun and interesting to analyze certain parts of comedy and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like 9 times out of 10, you watch somebody, you're like, this is a person who holds a level of professionalism and a level of competence. Whether then you get into after that, then it's like you're arguing about taste. But
No, I see. I can see that.
I was wondering. I mean, you're someone that seems so tuned into the elements of like Boston and the comedy scene there. Could you talk a little bit about like what are some of the like? Does the city have its own comedic set of sensibilities? What does the city value comedically?
I mean, I think like any other city, like that's not LA or New York, and I guess Chicago, right? Like I think with most of them, it's still a thing of like there's a lot of people develop and then they move to one of those cities, and then there are people who have stayed who are like incredible headliners. And I think what helps with Boston, I don't know if it's necessarily a style, but I do think that there's a pedigree. And I think that's what helps Boston stand up, is that there's a plethora of people who have left and have done a bunch of great things. And then there's also a lot of people who have stayed and have still accomplished like a lot and are still really good. It's just like a weird city where you just like, there are guys who have been on shows and stuff like that, and they're headlining around the country and they just live here. And then there's people who come back pretty often. So like, I think that level of quality, and I think the signs of it are clear, and just in the sense of like, before the lockdown, there were multiple clubs in Boston. Most shows were pretty full. People just knew that there was quality entertainment. And I think people just will always go to that.
So you started doing comedy in Boston then?
Yeah.
The first place that you, okay. Awesome. Yeah. So I love this question. It's my favorite. But like, I don't know. I just feel like, no, I came up with this question. It took me a really long time doing comedy to come up with this question. No, it's just kidding. It just literally doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be, it can be anybody you saw. It could be just like at a show. It could be at a mic, whatever. Favorite bomb of all time?
Oh, yeah. I got a few.
You don't got to name a name or anything, but please,
David hates it. I'm waiting for someone to name names. It is something I'm interested in.
Tension is what makes this marriage last,
I don't. I'll tell you one of mine, and I'll tell you one that wasn't mine. So I was doing a Ascent Chicago, and I was watching the show, and I was like, oh yeah, I can hang on the show. It seems like they'll like me. I didn't think I was gonna go in and sweep them off their feet, but I go up there and I'm just tanking, just absolute silence. And I'm trying everything. And like watching me sweating and running up and down, like just bombing is horrendous and obnoxious. I would admit. And I get the light and I say, okay, I'm getting off soon. And this guy in the front row yelled, "Not soon enough."
Oh God!
The audience started clapping.
Oh, that's rough.
And so then I sheepishly told my last joke and then said, "I'm Sam Ike, and you're welcome." And I got off the stage, and I couldn't look any of the other comics on the show in the eye. It was kind of hard being outside in the circle with them when, they were smoking a joint or whatever. And then I remember like a year and a half ago, I was talking to one of the show producers and he, had seen me do better in another forum and stuff. And even he remembered that one. And I was like, God damn.
Oh man. That's so hard. Just a little something from the audience that knocks you off right on your ass.
And it was the agreement. Everybody else agreed. Yeah.
Oh,
David has top 5 and one of my favorite ones ever where he said that he did a joke and the lady went, "It's okay, baby." It bombed. That's so good.
Full of people with no sound in the whole room. A little pat on, like I was trying to ride a 2-wheel bike for the first time, get into it. Man, I don't know. It's interesting to. Did you have one about?
Yeah. I'll tell you. So this one is. I honestly can't tell you who the person was. I really don't know the name, but so it was like a few years ago. My friend was putting together this thing, and they had like kind of an open call. And he was like, "Hey, will you help me watch a few videos?" And so I was like, "Okay, whatever." And then it was a panel, so I didn't feel like it was just me judging because I would be like, ugh. Unless it was like my own show, I guess. But I was watching these tapes, and there was this girl from the Midwest. She was doing, I remember it was the Midwest. She was doing a set, and the set was quite possibly an open mic, but maybe it was just a book show at a pizza shop. And the thing that was unique about this tape is that the longer her set kept going, the more visible in the background you could see the pizza shop was closing. Like so you're seeing the lights in the like by the stove turn off. You're watching delivery guy take off his hat. I don't have the tape anymore. It was on it was on an old laptop like 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't even know if I could save it. But I watched it a few times that week. I remember that. It was, I think about it once a month, no lie. Really
Just the owner smoking a cigarette, like regretting getting into the industry. His wife crying or something.
There's a kid in the background doing that thing we've all done when you're about to leave a job where you just start wiping something because you're like, "Can I go?"
You could see the people working there were, cleaning. Like they were closing.
Oh my fucking God.
It's Boston, so I imagine, or the Midwest, so just someone's putting on this huge parka to get ready.
A kid playing tennis, like trying to have a catch with someone who's not there, just throwing it off the wall and catching it over and over
That's
again.
amazing. Just watching the shop float.
Funny.
Oh,
That's
It was,
a goddamn
it was
sketch.
unreal.
Holy shit.
It was
Oh,
unreal. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
I was wondering if you could talk. I think the thing that is the most striking and the thing that we hear about you so often is your like physical presence in a room. And, like legitimately and I could emphasize this no more than I am right now for people who are listening, but in the room. It feels like you're extremely present. Is that something like, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about the headspace that you get into for those moments. Like, it feels like you smell the bullshit that comes with like other people's material when they're not in the room. How do you get to that like mind?
Sure. Well, thank you. That's a very kind compliment. I genuinely appreciate it, even though I believe it's false. But like,
Oh no.
I think I think that was one nice thing that improv taught was the idea of just being present. That you're going to, through the process, learn before, and you're trying to create forward. You're trying to create next. So you just have to kind of be aware of everything in the situation. Just kind of like, it's like, I like I get too too antsy to like sit down, and I want to be respectful to every performer on the show, but like I personally get too antsy to watch the entire show before I go on. But like you try to watch enough to be able to be like, so I have to like leave the room and just like sometimes stare at my phone or go smoke or something, but like, or just like sit and wash my hands or something like that. But like, I also, cause I like being in that moment and like discovering stuff. But I also think like, you watch a set and you can kind of see what they're responding to, what they haven't seen yet. I think that's always like important. And then you're just trying to just analyze the room. And it's just like taking into account every single detail you can and just see what you can remember. Because like I remember this like improv format called the Armando, and basically the Armando is an improv format which like someone tells a story and then the improvisers do scenes based off of that story. And like what a lot of people tend to do in a lot of improv scenes is they try to do something directly from the monologue. So if the story is about going to a convenience store, someone's going to do a scene about being a convenience store. But something I kind of remembered was just the idea of like, okay, instead of they're going to mention the convenience store, yeah, but they also mentioned the fact that they had a purple sweater, and like I want to take purple sweater. And that's like, I don't know if that explains it better, but like, it's just kind of like, just trying to just analyze the details as much as you can. And just try to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like like we get to do stand-up comedy, as much as I hate bad comedy, I still appreciate the fact that comedy exists, and especially now more so, but
That's a very good point in that, like being in the room is like, I feel like that too, where I'm watching my friends who I know are funny, but I've heard the joke, and then I'm like, I'm not laughing on top of that. So it's like, I don't want an audience. At a mic, it's fine. But like, you know what I mean? But an audience member to just be like, look at you and you're not laughing is like weird. So like, I'm like, okay, I'll go outside. I'll do this. I'll do that. And then like, I know when a joke is funny and laugh. I don't know. I think that's what you're saying is like a great thing to actually do for other comedians is like,
yeah.
Be nice about, you know what I mean? Because like, how many times do you not laugh at your own friend's jokes because you heard it like 75 times? You're actually just waiting. You're waiting to hear somebody else laugh at it, and that's like, does that make sense at all? I feel like that's. No, not at all.
Oh no, sure,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
no,
all right, yeah. I just,
no, I agree.
I just thought I
Yeah,
was an asshole there for that inaudible 2 seconds. I was like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Okay, great.
no, the other thing I like is I love precision. You know, so like even if I've heard the joke a bunch of times, if they nail it right, that excites me. Like I know, like I have like a few jokes where I try to do it slightly different or put an emphasis on something different just to see if I can nail that right. Because I think a lot of people, I like repetition. I like when people have old jokes from 8 years ago. I mean, mainly because I do. But like, I like seeing how it evolves. Can they nail it? Can they make it adaptable? Those are always fun to me.
Yeah, to like MacGyver things, I feel like, and keep them fresh is that, you know, it's interesting because we don't think about this kind of burnout like a gymnast, I guess. Like you never get tired of watching your other gymnast friends do like a mat routine, I guess. But
Right,
like
right.
there's like I've never thought about that there is, it's true, there's like this pocket of bitterness that can form when you look at comedians, and it's not necessarily that they're bitter, but it is that they like have that sort of like the laughter has gone out of their lives. I don't know, but it's you do seem like somebody who keeps it fresh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to. I always I always tell like my friends is like, I don't know what I can't control what my like career becomes or whatever, but like I can't control if I get better. And like that's the only way I'll quit stand up is like if I'm worse than I was last year. Without the whole lockdown thing. But like
Right.
yeah. But in a general sense, if I'm in 2022, if I'm worse than I was right before lockdown, I'll quit.
Interesting. That, you know what? That's, it's interesting that that goes to another question that sometimes we ask about, like when you see an end goal of it. I know that that was something that we've asked on previous episodes. I was wondering, the follow up that we normally give to that is like when we look at comedians, like in terms of the levels that we're ascending. What do you think is something that you're setting as your yardstick that you're putting ahead and saying, this is the next thing that I want to get to in my personal craft?
I want to be able to figure out how you can get. I want to get to a skill level where I can comfortably go up there and improvise for 45 minutes or go up there and do 45 minutes of straight material. I don't. I feel like there's moments where there's some progress, but I think that's what I'm striving at. Because like I said, I can't. Sure, there's a bunch of career aspects I want, but I at some point that's out of my control. But as far as the act, that's where I want it to be.
Yeah, you seem very level that way, where it's like I feel like that's like where people really want to be, is that level where it's like, yeah, whatever comes to me, but I need to work on me as the comedian. And I feel like that's the real goal of most comedians. And then they get bitter, it seems like, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I talk shit all the time of like, fuck, so and so got so and so. We're all human beings. We do that.
Yeah.
People get jealous of people at their job. That's part of life. But like ultimately, like I genuinely believe this is that I've seen it over my entire life of watching stand-up comedy and watching obscure comedians rise up and stuff like that. I've seen very few truly great stand-up comics not get some level of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely have seen it. And if I have, it's because of their own, more often not, their own kind of decline. Whether that be that ranges from a bunch of stuff, from being canceled to being lazy, or starting a family. You know what I mean? Like I know dudes who are funnier than me that like kids got a better job. You know what I mean? I can't blame them. They found happiness.
That's I always think that that's crazy too, to think about like some guy who was so good at comedy and then he quit comedy and now he's just entertaining his family and they're just so happy. They're like, I have the coolest dad. Like, I don't know. I think there's like some happiness out there for some guy who's like, I tell my kids jokes and they laugh, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. But I want to actually get back to that last. Is there someone? So we usually ask. We can do favorite comics or Boston comics, but I really want to know: is there someone to that degree that we've not actually got into in the show that I really wanted to ask? Do you think that there's someone who's like criminally underrated? Someone that you think is just sitting on the shelf right now that you're like, how is this happening right
now? I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there's people that I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, I'm shocked that like Eric Andre is not a movie star. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. To me, like the funniest guy in the world, and I like don't understand how he's not a movie star. Yeah, that's like one of my favorite comics for sure. And then there's a lot of really funny people from Boston. A lot of really funny people who just like recently left, like Chambers, Kenice Mobley, Cosmin Garza. Those are some really funny comics. If you ever get the chance to check them out, please do so. Those are also my friends. I don't know. They also paid me to say that. So
the Eric Andre thing's great though. I feel the same way. I feel like he's a very smart individual. I think he has a stand-up special coming out.
Yeah, he just got one.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think he's got one coming out on Netflix, I think. And then Kenice Mobley I did a show with, and she was fucking fantastic as well. I mean, she fucking blew the roof off the place once.
Yeah, Mobes is great.
And like walked in with such extreme confidence. I love that. Can we do we like to ask people comedy Rushmore? Like, I don't know, 4 right across.
Maybe get rid of that phrase.
Top 4 of all time. Carlin, Rock, Pryor, Chappelle.
Wow. Is that the order that you would put them into?
Not the order. I don't know if I could really pick an order. It would be tricky because like I think nothing. I don't know if there's ever been an hour of stand-up produced that's better than Killing Them Softly, but like Bigger and Blacker is just what inspired me to even be remotely interested in stand-up. And at the same time, I don't think I've watched any other comics hours multiple times over than Carlin. And then like Pryor is like the pinnacle of every attribute that's great from all 3 of those comics. He did better. So it's like it's kind of hard to like definitively qualify.
Yeah, Killing Softly is definitely top 3 of all time. I don't know how it's got to be in everybody's. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Carlin. That's such a solid list. I feel like that's the people. David, I think that's close to our list when we did that last time.
We've like asked most people that have been on the show, and they've definitely had a similar thing. And I get that of like, the way that we have to like I feel like being in like different time periods and like achieving different things is an interesting sort of like thing to have to bring into the fold with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think Rock, that's the first time someone says Rock though, I think actually, which is crazy because when I was a kid, that voice was like, kids on like the playground did like his voice is like amazing. I've said grand opening, grand closing 1,000 times in my life. It's my favorite Rock quote. That's so good.
It's all, yeah, and Rock is also like, to me, we were getting back to the idea of like perfectionist and like the idea of like building it correctly and building it right, and like that's why I admire Rock, and he's probably my favorite out of the 4 because of like you look at a bit and it's like the breakdown, it's like each side of it, the tags, the repeat, like every single part of it is so it's so beautifully orchestrated in a way that's like as much as I talk about me wanting to improvise sets, like if I could if I could do like if I can like nail it like half as what he does, like that. I mean, you know, when you watch like Kill the Messenger and it's showing him doing it in the 3 different places, it's like that's like one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in comedy. It's just the idea of like he nailed the notes just right, like a fucking conductor, you know, like it's like I know that meme is going around about the cops and pilots, but like I mean Rock is the ultimate pilot. I mean, to me, he's the best NASA astronaut in comedy. Like he's gonna nail it on the mark each time, and that's pretty fucking amazing.
It's crazy when you go back as a comic and you look at certain things, and Rock, the way he moves is almost the way his brain is moving. Like how it's like the setup and then the punch is like he stops and he puts it right to you. Is like, I don't know, fucking amazing, dude. I don't know why I said I don't know. I know. I just said what I know. I gotta stop doing that.
Do you have anybody else that you would put up for like an award for deep-seated precision in their work?
Oh, that's fun. Do you know? Do you know? There's this guy. He started in Boston. Lingon Mitra, super funny dude. Mm-hmm. He's like a excellent like kind of like joke writer. Just nails the inflection, and I always find that amazing. I guess like if I could think of someone like more well known, probably like Mulaney and Seinfeld. Those come to mind. And Jasper Red. Jasper Red, his special jazz talk is like one of my favorite things. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not as like orchestrated as like a rock thing, but there's a confidence level there that he just knows what he's doing, and I really admire that. I'm trying to think of another one that comes to mind. Let's see. I'm sure I can do something eventually.
I was going to actually ask you because we always send this question to people and we never ask them. But like, what are your hobbies outside of comedy? Like, I think David and I have agreed that we see comedy as like an outlet. Like some people are like, oh, it's a hobby, or you do your little sketches or whatever people, you know, like they're condescending. But like, I see it as like an outlet. I don't see it as a hobby, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't see it as like a career. I see it as just like something I do that I really genuinely enjoy. But I mean, you have to step outside of that. And I feel like, what is your thing to step out? Like, what do you like to do?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a huge movie buff. So like, that's always been a thing. I watch like a shit ton of movies, like a lot. And that I always think about it like in this sense, when people ask like hobbies, like if I didn't do stand up, would this part of my life ever change? Like I would always continuously watch a bunch of movies. I've always been in sports. I try to like go to 2 or 3 different baseball diamonds every year, see games.
Oh, like different actual stadiums, you're saying?
Yeah, I want to, but at least by the time I'm 50, I want to be able to have seen a game at every stadium. Yeah.
That's an awesome goal. Holy shit. That's such a cool, that's what like, if you ever have grandchildren, they will say about their, that's the story, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, it'll be fun. I'll have like all the pictures, some of the ticket stubs I still have. Sometimes I remember to buy, like I try to buy a concession thing just to keep it, but sometimes I just fucking forget. But
weird question to ask on a comedy podcast, but do you have a favorite baseball stadium?
Yeah. Definitely Fenway. Fenway is like it, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a homer, but like really is like one of the most impressive pieces of architecture I've seen in America. It's absolutely gorgeous, and like when you go there and you watch a fucking Red Sox game at Fenway Park, you feel it. You know, it's just there's a feeling there. Old Yankee Stadium was great. I haven't been to New Yankee Stadium. That is actually going to be the last stadium. Once I get to all of them, the last one I'm going to do is New Yankee Stadium. Wrigley's awesome. Wrigley is great, and Chicago is just a fun town. Pittsburgh is beautiful. Pittsburgh Stadium is absolutely gorgeous. And Baltimore, Camden Yards, that one's really good. And I'd say probably Cleveland and Philly were my least favorites.
We get it.
Citizens Bank, baby. Citizens Bank. That's awesome, dude. Fenway. I've been outside of when I went to Boston, like how everybody comes to Philly and they want like a cheesesteak. I just wanted to hear a real Boston accent, like natural in the wild. I just wanted to hear it, and I got that outside of Fenway. And we were walking, and the game had just let out, so there's like a mob of people. And our friend was like, "Who won?" And he got the W out in one. And this guy's like, "Sox killed them." Like that was so sad,
Caught him.
Yeah, Sox killed them. Yeah.
In a similar vein to that, it's interesting actually to talk about architecture, because I think that like there is something about like the venue that someone is in, and getting back to the comedy side of it, it really does like inform a lot of the performance. Like there are good clubs and bad clubs. Do you think that you have like, if you had like an unlimited budget, what do you think would be the best way to build a room around what you want to do in a comedy space?
I think like, well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's like the fun is finding the adapting, but I think like my favorite types of rooms is like, I love it intimate. You know, I want it closed. I want it tight. If it's a big space, I'm going to try to use as much as I can of it. But like, I've been lucky enough to do a few like big theaters before, and like those are like, that's like the best. That's like the coolest thing ever. That's like the best sound, everything's awesome. But like other than that, like give me a small intimate room where I want to be able to see everybody. I want everyone to not feel like like I can't see them and I don't know exactly what they're doing. I love that.
I'm watching you. I get that. Yeah.
I mean, I really want to go back and ask you, since we asked you comedy top 4, can you do movie top 4? I don't know. I want to know.
Sure. I think this is when you get into like questions of like the greatest and favorites, right? So
favorites, I guess, yes.
So I'll do my favorites. The movies that moved me the most that I've gone back to and still hit me, I would probably say would be like Goodfellas, Do the Right Thing, Jaws, and then I think depending on the mood, it's like somewhere between Get Out, When Harry Met Sally, Social Network, and Chinatown. Wow. Those would be some of my favorites.
That's a really good list.
It's interesting that When Harry Met Sally is on there. What draws you to that movie?
I love romantic comedies, man, and also When Harry Met Sally. I mean, it's brilliant dialogue, and it's also like I genuinely love. I think like a thing that's not being done well in movies now is just two people connecting. And When Harry Met Sally is about connection. The interstitials with the couples talking about how they met, those are fucking beautiful. But like just the way that the relationship develops between Harry and Sally, it feels real, it feels honest. Granted, yeah, we can do all the woke privilege shit, sure, but like, they genuinely feel like human beings that had their own perspectives that were figuring out ways that they're connected and figuring out ways that they're different, and then ultimately finding love. And like it's funny. It's still funny. Like it's still funny. And and it's on, and it feels genuine. Like you watch a lot of romantic comedies and you see the ending, and you're like, when they put in the make cute, couple has a problem towards the climax, they break apart, they realize they need to be together, and then there's a gesture that happens, they get back together. When the gesture happens, that's when you can really tell if a romantic comedy is actually above average or below average. Because like if you're mid about it, if they nail that part, and I don't think any romantic comedy has nailed it better than When Harry Met Sally, when he comes back and he's like, when he says the line, it's like, when you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want that to start as soon as possible. I mean, that's like one of the best endings to a movie, dude.
Well, yeah.
It's even fucking heartwarming to talk about. My
Yeah.
God. It's really
That's
nice.
all the movies you named too are like what I think is like a movie where you're watching it and the entire time you're not like, I'm watching a movie. Like,
Yeah.
you're just in it. And that happened last night. I watched Gangs of New York for the first time, and the whole time I was like, but the whole time I was like, oh, I'm watching a movie. You know what I mean? I wasn't like,
interesting.
but like maybe because I did. Okay, maybe you can tell me why I'm a piece of shit for doing this, but I put that movie up against Martin Scorsese's other movies, and I feel like Goodfellas is, I mean, I don't know. I guess like everybody would think that's my favorite movie. It is, but it's like, it's so good though. The whole time you're watching it, like it doesn't matter how old you are. It's like you're just in that movie. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fan of, like, I didn't know who the hell Ray Liotta was. It's like why Star Wars is cool, because you didn't care. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm rambling, but one of my favorite movies is Moneyball, because the whole time you're like, you don't really be like, oh, that's Brad Pitt. He's just playing a different role where he kind of took himself out of Brad Pitt.
That's really funny that you mentioned Moneyball. If you go on my Facebook, like I think like a month ago, I ranked my top 20 baseball movies, because like I genuinely think that baseball movies are the best sports movies. Like I would say the quality of boxing movies are higher, but baseball movies are more consistently good. And Moneyball's, I think, the greatest baseball movie ever made. I think I ranked it seventh of I think I ranked it 7 in my ranking of the best movies of the top of the past 10 years. I think I had it 7th.
Oh wow. Okay, favorite basketball movie. I'm a big basketball guy. That's why I want to know.
Wow, man, I love basketball. I can't wait for it to come back next month. I would say, well, Space Jam's the one I watched the most, but like in terms of like actually like good movie, I guess like I would probably say Hoop Dreams, but I also really like Juice. I mean, it's hard to argue about the quality of He Got Game, but like, and as far as like a movie that's like, I'll sit down, rewatch this again. Yeah, I think I would probably go with like Hoop Dreams or Above the Rim, not Juice. Above the Rim is what I meant.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I didn't know if you were gonna say Blue Chips or not. I just was wondering.
No, I haven't seen Blue Chips in a long ass time, so I couldn't say. And like, and Love and Basketball, that's another one I haven't seen in a while, so maybe that would be up there. But
sorry, David. This is
Okay.
So tell us your favorite movies now.
Oh, dude, I can talk about movies all day. I mean, if there's anything I know how to talk about, it's movies and myself, and that's pretty much all you guys have asked me about.
True. I was wondering, like, I don't know, is there a theme just to keep it in movies? I do really like movies. I mean, I've never been. That's like a thing that I'm trying to like rack my brain about. It's like Space Jam did mean a lot to me, but is there like a theme of movie that you think has been touched like once that people should come back to? Make another movie about this. Why aren't you making another movie about X? What does that look like to you?
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, I think like there's a few genres in movies, and I mean, I've and what I'm about to say is like stuff I've also heard in other movie podcasts, but stuff I also genuinely believe is like there's a few genres that don't happen anymore, and some for good reason and some for not. And one of them is romantic comedy. Like a good, honest romantic comedy is very hard to do. And I think part of it is like, I don't know. I think a very good romantic comedy in today would have a tough time making sex funny and original. And I think that's just been hammered so well in so many other movies. And also like today's climate is just different in how we talk about sex for good and bad. So like I feel like that's like, and in that same vein, erotic thriller is like something that I love that you're not going to see. Like you're
Instinct style?
Basic Instinct, but Gone Girl, like there hasn't been another movie as good as Gone Girl since Gone Girl.
Ah, yeah.
And like a big part of that is it's like, it's you know, it's like just trying to find the right balance of stuff. And I also think that like, you know, from whatever I read, it seems like movie studios don't want to make a mid-budget movie. Like, they rather make a movie for $10 million than a movie for $300 million. So those movies are always tough. And for that same reason, like action comedies, like besides Stuber, can you really think of like a true action comedy that came the past couple months, you know?
Yeah. I got about 30 minutes into that movie, Stuber. And
yeah, because I was watching it on a plane, and I fucking on a plane, it's great. I watched like some, like it was on this trip I went early this year, and like I watched Stuber and Isn't It Romantic back to back. And
no offense to Camille Nanjiani, but that movie was hard to watch that movie. It was like, yeah.
The one thing I thought was really cool about Stuber was that David Bautista never gets his eyesight throughout the entire movie. Like I thought that was a gag that they were going to give up on, or a plot point they were just going to give up on, and then it was just going to be him and Camille. But no, they kept the eyesight thing throughout the entire movie, and I really admired that.
First of all, I want to say, Sam, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It really is. It's a delight to be able to chat with you and have you here with us and chatting about all this.
No, thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it.
We normally we conclude it normally with sort of a big wind up question, and it's we normally ask people, like, if you had like divine powers of God kind of a thing, what do you think is something that you would change about the comedic landscape overall? Like if you could change one element of it, what would it be?
More black headliners.
There you go.
Good. All right, Sam Ike, thank you so much for being on the podcast. If people want to check you out, where can they see you?
The Sam Ike on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, that's basically it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect. I was gonna say, if you have anything upcoming or anything that's like far out,
I don't know. I mean, I think stand up is kind of coming back in small ways. So I'm assuming that I don't know what is ultimately going to happen a year from now, but I think by the end of the summer I'll probably do a couple shows, and hopefully things are more cleared up, and either later this year or next year I'll be able to travel. I mean, in theory, I have a couple of things I'm supposed to do later in the fall, but I'll believe it more August, September,
Yeah. It's a little weird. They'll ask you to stand and like on a grassy knoll and be like, all right, and then the people are going to be down here and you'll just do comedy from up here. It's like,
yeah. And I mean, I like the outdoor shows. I like doing them and stuff, but it's also like a thing of like, that's not ultimately sustainable for a long period of time. And then like the indoor shows that are starting to happen, it seems like they're all like with 40 seats, and everyone's kind of spread apart. And so it's like, I guess that's like, I guess that's going to work. But I always feel like my only feeling is like, it seems like it's going to be weird at first, because at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, no matter how natural it feels, at the end of the day, you still know there's like a fucking pandemic going on. Even whether you take it serious or not, other people are taking it way more serious than you or way less serious than you, and either one could be a problem. So like,
yeah. Well, thank you again for coming. We appreciate it. Stay on the line. We're gonna do our little sign off here. David, take her away.
Well, thanks everybody for listening up to the So Tell Us podcast. I'm David Feinberg.
I'm Jared McCallie.
And that's been Sam Ike. We hope that we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.